Hello everybody, welcome back to the Norries podcast. Before we get into it there, we just want to remind people that we're supported through Danny Donovan at quickminutes.com.
Yeah, Danny's a very good friend of both myself and James. He comes from the north side as well, and he grew up locally, and he's been a massive supporter of the podcast and both myself and James since we actually began. And he has his own company called Quick Minutes now, and
quickminutes.com is a meeting management application for semi-formal and formal meetings. And look, if you want to know more about that, quickminutes.com, and supporting Danny's supporting us. So if you're interested in that, check them out and enjoy the rest of the podcast. Hello everybody, welcome back to the Norries podcast. I'm your host James, and I'm joined as always by my good friend Timmy Long.
Hi everyone.
Sean is on the switcher. Say hi, Sean. Not too bad. We've a mini Sinn Féin Irish today. Yeah. And we've two local city councillors, Councillor Mick Nugent and Councillor Kenneth Collins. You're very welcome to the podcast. You're both representing the area where we're from, Cork Northwest City, Cork City Northwest. So before we get into that and what that's like and what it means for you, for the people that don't know you, I want to just get to let you introduce yourself. So go through first, Kenneth. Do you want to let us know where you're from, where you grew up, what it was like for you?
Yeah, I'm from Temple Acre Avenue originally.
That's where my mum is from originally too.
Yes, I know that, yeah. Across the road. All the best people here. Look, I'm there. My father's still alive. He's still living in the home, the family home.
Nice old place, Temple Acre Avenue.
Quiet. Yeah, it's very quiet now. So I have one brother and I have three sisters. As we grew up, unfortunately my mother died at a young age of 44 years of age.
Go away.
Yeah, died of cancer.
Go out there.
Yeah. But look, that's put before people, and you just have to eventually embrace it and get on with life then as well. But loved where I'm from, loved the north side of the city, went to the North Man. Like most of the people on the north side of the city went to the North Man. There's something wrong if you didn't go to the North Man.
One boys.
Yeah. So other than that, played with St Vincent's Hurling Football Club all my life.
Hurling or football or both?
Well, I'm a hurler. I think footballers keep the hurlers fit.
He's still carrying the injuries from his hurling days.
And I saying that I played hurling when men played hurling without helmets, without gum shields, without anything.
They were tough old days,
a few times, played hurling when men were men.
This first time hurling and just doubling off the air, it's not in the game these days, and it's a disappointment that it's gone from the game.
What a fantastic game.
Unbelievable. I mean, the fact, the skill that just connecting with a slitter that's travelling is just an amazing thing to be able to do.
I've heard stories about Tommy Gould and Barry Coots and them back in the day by putting their head where you would put your hurleys, and a real rough old sport, isn't it?
Yeah,
it still is, but back in the day it was a little bit more. I've heard Jason Statham, the actor, in a movie describe hurling to somebody. He says it's like a mix between hockey and murder.
I thought that was a great expression. But you have the likes of Barry Coots, as you just mentioned, a hero in my eyes. Barry was my best man, and my daughter's godfather. But to see him playing hurling, he's a genius.
Was Barry a hurler?
Barry has a very rare thing actually. He has a Dr. Hartley Cup medal and an All-Ireland medal with Cork in 1985 in the 1 year. So
Is that a minor medal?
Minor medal, yeah. And he's a couple of All-Ireland boxing medals as well. So yeah, fair sportsman, And then you cross the road from Barry's house, you had Donncha Murphy.
Yeah.
Another genius,
Do you know the thing about Barry and back in the day as well, and Tommy? They used to get a lot of the lads around the area that might have been going through tough times on the milk float, didn't they? And getting a lot of the lads a bit of work. Yeah. But I think something about Vincent's, they always kind of looked after their own, didn't they?
Well, I tell you now, look, I mentioned my mother, I came to that time in life as well, and I was going down the wrong road.
Yeah.
But in fairness to the likes of William McCarthy and Tommy Gould, they put the St Vincent's hand of love around me, and I went off the tracks small, went away from St Vincent's, and when you have the likes of Tommy Gould and William McCarthy, Jerry Corbett, and that are stalwarts of the club, that spotted that, had the eye to spot what was happening and to bring me back on track again, you have to commend them, because I worked in down there. Tommy got me my first job in Ballyhina, you know, working off the milk floats with barracudas. And, you know, when we were young fellas, he was bringing the old Benny Bunny. Can you remember the Benny Bunny milk? The old flavoured milk.
Oh, yeah.
It was nearly gone out of date, like, but he'd bring him up the field and all the kids be delighted then, like, you know.
But isn't that just how GA clubs are? They look after each other, they get each other jobs, you know, they mind fella if he's going down the rowing road, they kind of, as you said, put the arm around him and say, what's the story? Come on, we'll do this, and they'll get you a job then. And
still doing it.
they are still doing it. It's a little bit different to other sports in certain ways, you know. But
it's a family. It's a connection. You're actually in a family, because they give you a clip around the ear too and call you aside and say, listen, you want to cop on to yourself a small bit, but you know, these days now you have the likes of the underage setup in our club, which is fantastic. Wayne Murphy is you can remember Wayne Murphy? He's the chairman of the underage, and like what we have up in the heart of Knocknaheeny, you know, we have 5
professional setup in that.
We have 5 pitches. We have an all-weather pitch. We have an indoor hall. We have a gym. You know, all for our children and the children of the area, and we're community based as well. So it's not a closed gate system. Everybody in the community is welcome into St. Vincent's.
You know, when you said you were going down a kind of a difficult path, and the boys kind of roped you in, how did your life pan out for you then? What?
Well, I suppose, look, everybody wanted to get into Sir Henry's back in the day, and
including Timmy.
Timmy wasn't allowed in.
I was when the side door.
Well, I was cute enough, you see. I was, I suppose, I got a job in there. So everybody wanted to get in there, so I got a job in Sir Henry's. I was cute, yeah. So I danced for about 7 years, you know, in the 90s. It was brilliant. Went down to the Klondike, partied with Carl Cox, Lana Garnier, the biggest DJs in the world at the time. Because Sir Henry's was one of the biggest nightclubs in Europe, I'd say, you know, probably in top 10 in Europe.
That was some club though.
It was
that was a mad club.
I never went there. Once and twice.
I'm happy to say I was too young.
you go in there in a white tracksuit. People just go in there in tracksuits.
Yeah,
the night
Joe Blogs.
Scene. Yeah.
Blogs, SPX, runners and stuff like that.
You come out filthy then, like, you know,
but like a coal man coming out of there, like.
But you know, I suppose, look, the authorities were happy enough, and this is my own opinion on it, to have that allowed open, because they knew where everybody was on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. They were all inside Sir Henry, so there was kind of no trouble around the place, like, you know.
So, like, was Henry's a safe nightclub, or was there violence, or was there a love buzz, because it was the height of the ecstasy scene as well?
It was a love buzz in there, like, you know. You had people in there that probably on a weekday and decided they would have gone at it, but up there is you're everybody's friend. And once or twice while I was in there working, there was one I remember, a tear gas canister was released. That was heavy enough now, like, you know, people were getting sick, the tears were running out their eyes, and you know, I was 16, 17, I was in there, and I was in amongst that, like, you know. But, you know, that's my life. That's where I progressed. And then, you know, as I said earlier, the hand of love from the lads in the club came around me and said, we need to look after her.
What age when your mother died?
My mother died on the 17th of June. I'm 18th of May, so just a month. I was 17 by a month, so I'm 16.
It must have been a difficult time, all right, can I say?
It was hard because I too older and too younger.
Yeah,
I was in the middle. You know, I was in the middle. It was hard, but the only thing, you know, from the day she was diagnosed to the day she died, it was 16 weeks. It was very fast. And sometimes I say to people, you know, I was happy with that, because I've seen other family members die of cancer since, and it was, you know, a couple of years, and it was tough. It was tough for my aunt's husband and son. He was 14, he was 44 as well. Two of them dying together, you know. And sometimes it's easier for everybody if the person does die fairly fast, you know, because, you know, there's a lot involved in that. Your mother's your mother, and I look, no disrespect to my father, but you can live without your father. Your mother, there's a connection because she gives birth to you. There's a connection there, and your mother is always there with you, like, you know.
The Irish mammy.
Irish mammy.
The Irish mammy.
Still looking after us.
I tell you, gas one about the Irish mammy. If you go and listen to, go on Spotify or RT Player, the RT radio documentary. So they did one recently on the riot in Spike Island in 1985. And Michael, who I know from family, but he doesn't give his second name on the podcast, he's explaining like how it played out. He was 18 at the time. The guards came in, they were throwing petrol bombs on the guards when they were trying to get off the boat. The army came, couldn't get them down off the roof. Drummer got them down off the roof. One of the boys, his mammies, came over on the boat with one of the guards and came into the prison. Get down here, you! And they all came down.
You don't threaten the mammy or you don't upset the mammy.
Especially a cock mammy.
Exactly. But
That's class.
you know, and you go into I was in a phase, and it was tough because power versus force, like, you know. You know, I'm the power and the force of what was put before me. I left school kind of straight after my mother passed away. I'm a floor layer by trade, floor layer. I did a lot, and anything that came before me, I just went on. I did my junior cert, I didn't do a leaving cert. And you know, if something that I wanted to do, I just put on the blinkers and off I go.
for
like,
it.
you know, yeah.
How did you become a city councillor then? Like, was politics something that you were interested in, or?
Again, Tommy Gould got me involved with the lads, helping out in the background, postering, putting up posts. Tommy's a hard man, like, you know, he'd get anybody to do anything, like, you know, as you know, and got involved, helping out. And with the election in 2014, it was the rumblings were there that this is going to be a good election for us. So Tommy rang me one day, and I mean, we asked, I think, 11 women.
Yeah.
To run, you know, because we were looking for a woman, gender balance.
Because I was the other candidate already in the race, like you could say, I suppose.
So we were looking for a woman that would, you know, that would be strong enough and that would run with Mick, and we couldn't get one. So Tommy rang me one day and he said, would you run? He said, Mick wants to know, would you run? And I said, this is 3 weeks before the election. It was about 3 weeks.
Yeah, no more than that.
Yeah, about 3 weeks. So I thought about it, and I was, you know, I rang Mick, had a conversation with Mick. Are you sure? Because obviously it was about protecting Mick's seat as well, because we didn't want to make a mistake and lose Mick's seat because of me.
There's a risk of diluting Mick's vote.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so to be fair, we sat down. We had people that had the numbers. Jonathan O'Brien was big involved in the background here. Jonathan with numbers is amazing when it comes to this. And I think to the vote, we were shy. We were different of about 3 votes. We said we were going to get 850 votes. We got 847 votes in 3 weeks, which was great. Like, you know, and again, down to the GA, you know, the GA, the Pearshigs were very good to me. St. Vincent's, were, you know, and obviously St. Vincent's and the Pearshigs rival clubs. But when it came to this, they came out and they canvassed for me, and
That's amazing. Like.
to get elected in
A
that.
team effort, like a lot of people.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's community effort. You the 2 clubs separated by what, 2 kilometres, and there is a bit of rivalry. It's like your local derby, the Pearshig and Vincent's. But to come together then for something so special like that, to get somebody within the community in general into, you know,
It was great. We had a vote management in place. We stuck to the rules. We stuck to what we said we'd do, and that was the result of it. So, you know, but again, if I have blinkers on, then we'll go for it.
A military style operation, someone said.
We'll bring you in, so Mick, how are you, boy?
Grand, thanks for having us on and having the 2 of us on. People always said we're always together.
You're from the posh side and the north side, aren't you?
I don't know.
Northeast.
I think
It's just above you now, Colin.
posh side of our Cullen, is it?
Yeah. You're living in Arcola now, but you're from Ballyvlan, aren't you?
Yeah, Ballyvlan originally, or I grew up in Ballyvlan. Well, actually, I spent my first couple of years in Dublin, but I don't kind of.
Yeah, we say more
we say
about
no more.
like James.
We say no
Yeah,
more.
James was born up there as well.
Yeah.
Well, you grew up in Ballyvlan.
Go up in Better Park in Ballyvlan. Bar away a couple of times down the low road, Glamire Road. New connections down there as well, down the grandparents down there for a while, but mostly Ballyvlan. So there was 6 of us there, the eldest there, like 3 boys, 3 girls.
What was it like growing up in Ballyvlan?
It was, I suppose, Better Park. I think we were kind of nearly the first, I suppose, we moved into the estate in the late 70s. We were kind of, self and the lads, you know, the buddies, were kind of the first big group maybe in the area of youngsters, you know, teenagers and that, like, so. Went to St. Aidan's secondary school. Yeah. So, like, Kenneth actually done the intercert at the time. I didn't finish. I suppose a lot of us were kind of, what's the word for it? On the hop. On the hop. We're Leeds pitches now. He was a very good good lot of us in St. Aidan's just be on the hop. But, of course, as we're going into 6th year, then, you know, others was, look, we better start taking school seriously, like, you know. Whereas I was kind of still going on the hop. So we kind of came to a mutual agreement with the school. I stay back in 5th year, but in the end, I kind of just had no mass in it and just kind of never finished it, really. Which I suppose we kind of regret a small bit because, you know, when I was in school, I was probably good enough, you know, good enough student, like, you know, at that stage.
Involved in sport as well, Mick?
Not, it wouldn't have been great, no, like, but I suppose some lads slag me as well. I've had more clubs than Tiger Woods, you know.
Oh, really?
I said the first, I played maybe for Brian Dillon's and Glen Rovers, like, you know, but it wouldn't have been great. And played soccer for Ballyvalan as well, you know. So, growing up in, and again, I suppose, 80s, 90s, my mother, I suppose, looking after the home at the time. My father was a barman. Actually, I heard someone describe him once as one of the top 10 barmen in Cork, you know.
Yeah.
And actually, it was funny because, you know, where we have the office now in Shandon Street, you know, Eugene's bar next to it.
Yeah.
Used to be T.O.'s way back. So we actually, the father, he ran that for a year. So that's why he was in St. Patrick's Primary School, then went to the Knocknaheeny. And then we went a year there and back to the park in Ballyvalan then,
And how did you get into being, how did you get into Sinn Féin and that?
I suppose I was in school, I'd massive interest in Irish history. Massive interest. I remember being 11 or 12. I was in the, you know, the children's library in town and the adult library, just getting books out every couple of weeks. I mean, the first, I suppose, book that had a big impression on me was Tim Pat Coogan's book. It was the IRA. So I read that, and it goes through, I suppose, hundreds of years of history, basically 800 years. I suppose of British, I suppose, interference, occupation in Ireland, the various rebellions, the various all the resistance, and I had a huge interest in that. I kind of just developed from there, like, you know. So and I say 17 or 18, then I joined Sinn Féin, then and kind of took it from there, like, you know.
And was it like, kind of going to meetings, going out canvassing and stuff like that?
Yeah, we had the office in Barrack Street. We actually just sold it. Yeah.
That's still there, is it? Actually?
No, we sold it.
Years.
It was, yeah, since about 85, 86.
Is that where Donnacha's office was?
Donncha had a clinic there, but he's out in Toker.
Oh, is he?
So it was there, Hearn Crowley Memorial Hall in Barrack Street. It was named after 2 volunteers from Cork who died in active service during, I suppose, the last 40 years. Tony Hearn and Dermot Crowley. Actually, Martin McGuinness opened it 85, 86. So I started working in there, I suppose. I went from, I suppose, school straight in there. And up to last year I was still there.
There's a lot of replies them up with, poked them over with, you know, Mick likes an old cake, like, so.
Really? How did you become a city councillor then? When did that come about? And is it like what Mick said there, or what Kenneth said there? It's like they're looking for somebody to run, they see the potential in you and they approach. Is that how it works?
I suppose getting involved in elections probably wasn't the first thing I would have been involved in, or looking to be involved in, basically as, you know, as a candidate, like, you know. I said I was involved with Sinn Féin and Republican activism for years, but I suppose kind of more behind the scenes when it came for elections. I remember the first election I was involved in was 93. You know, it was a by-election, and actually Don O'Leary, who you know very well, was actually a candidate in that one, and had been a candidate in a few elections after that. So various election campaigns, and 99, I remember, actually it was our first council seat. We won, I'd say it could have been 40 years. Jeez. Actually, it was Don was actually elected in 99. We were short a candidate actually in the northeast, so I actually just basically have a candidate on a ballot paper. I stood in 99, right? And then after that, again, Jonathan stood in the general elections of 2002, 2007, 2011, Jonathan was elected. I remember Tommy's first local election in 2009, he got elected there. And I suppose you could see from having one seat in 99 in the city council to where the party is now.
Why is Sinn Féin become so popular in the north side of Cork City?
I think I think recently, I think people have been looking for a change, I think. But even going back to the 90s, early 90s, when Sinn Féin was probably a small enough party, but particularly, and at the time, we were being concentrated really in working class communities. So I think we had credibility, you know, in the party, and being involved in different campaigns, like you mentioned, you know, I suppose areas like Knocknaheeny and Churchfield and Farnery, and the issues that were there in terms of those communities at the time, and then having our members were getting involved in campaigns there around different things that were affecting the community. You know, felt like Golly Flynn and others were involved for years, you know.
Back in the day, there was a perception of Sinn Féin and IRA and that stuff was hand in hand. But you know, in this day and age, I think that, for me anyway, I think that people don't look at Sinn Féin like that anymore. They look at Sinn Féin and their like stance on homelessness and all these other social issues, and the younger voter doesn't associate Sinn Féin and IRA. They associate Sinn Féin with, you know, left-wing politics, you know, social justice and stuff like that. Is that kind of what you're meeting?
Yeah, I mean, like, they know that we're on the ground and we stand up for those people that need it most. And look, we represent everybody. It's not just that cohort of people.
Yeah.
So we represent from businessmen down to those who we're speaking about now, like, you know. But, you know, the stories and the cases that you come across, some of them are very, very sad, like, you know, and your heart, you have to be tough enough as well to be in the position, because you're listening to stuff, and it's this is real life stuff, like, you know. But we're on the ground as well. We're always on the ground. We're always together, like, you know.
You're within the communities. You're centred the communities that you
visible presence.
You know, and that, I think that's very important. I often see you together a lot of events. You're always there. You always show up to things, you know, and that's noticed by the community, and that's why I think Sinn Féin today is becoming so popular, particularly around working class people. Working class people are, they're being just looked at and left there in that little spot that they've always been in, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's the voices of Sinn Féin.
Yeah, I think what James is saying, I know there's a debate at the moment, and even there was a newspaper poll recently about, the media kind of are fixated on this thing about, oh, the younger people don't remember what happened in the last 40 years, and that's why they vote for Sinn Féin. But I'm not even sure that's true. It's to a degree, right? But I think there is a lot of Irish people, even younger people, know plenty about Irish history. And they're reading back on it now, and they're looking, because you can see even since 2016, the centenaries of the Easter Rising and centenaries around the War of Independence, I think a lot of young people, I think Irish people in general, and polls will stack that up, are in favour of United Ireland. And if people see an opportunity now that it can be advanced peacefully and democratically, and so I think there's that. And then there is what Tim, you were saying there, I think to see people that were involved in the communities or were living locally, as you know, your own place, not living there, Colin. People were, I think we're very approachable and we're very available to people as well. And you can see us every Friday outside Super Value in Hollyhill, and we're around the place, you know, so we're very available.
But you can't forget your past either, because that's part of us and who we are as well. Like, you know, I mean, again, we just, like, my family's down the lower road, they're all railway drivers, and Mick's family are only a couple of doors down, would you believe, from my family. But I had a granduncle, and he got caught with alleged 212 hand grenades back in the parties.
Alleged?
Innocent until guilty, like.
Innocent, you're right. But he spent a bit of time in the Kllr, like, you know, and he had the likes of Brendan O'Neill's father and Sean O'Barry as well, you know, fellas who believed in what they believed in and fought for the... But you have to... We commemorate every year, we commemorate those who suffered and died for Irish freedom as well, and other people only do it on certain times, 25th, 50s, 100th anniversaries, where even recently there, no, Tyg Barry was his 102nd. He's Blair Street man. Actually put a plaque in his homestead. Former homestead, Blair Street. Because I know you were asking about that just as well in the families, and, you know, because some people have joined. I think there was always a perception of people involved in Sinn Féin, Republican politics, that came through families, and that's true to a degree. It was kind of like my family weren't
when I joined Republican at the time, they would be, but afterwards I would have found out I had relatives involved. You know, I had a cousin, Paddy, he died a couple of years ago. Like, he was in Portlaoise in the 70s.
Yeah.
And it kind of affected him, actually. It affected his health, he had a health breakdown. So he was kind of in a residential home, you know. So for a long time, I used to visit him. I had another cousin who was in the 40s, and he was in jail for nearly 10 years, you know.
You have something in common as well with Tommy. Tommy was massively into history as well, and that's how he kind of moved into Sinn
he was
Féin.
saying that, and I saw the podcast, and he was talking about in school and the hunger strikes. Because I even found out in more recent years, like, he even had I just brought this with my great grandfather. We found this photograph.
You can thrash on, yeah. You can see it.
Yeah.
So
Great grandfather,
yeah, Sean Corker.
What's the date there?
It was written on, I think it's 1919.
1919.
Yeah, he was from Emily, that's the father's home place in Tipperary, so it was kind of that area of Tipperary and East Limerick, and he was actually injured.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of pride of place.
There's history there. That's big deal, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pride of place at home, because my own father died there in the last couple of years, you know, so we kind of, the two photographs
Nice one.
on the mantelpiece, like, you know. So.
My own, and I'm sure James and yourself, like, my own grandmother used to have this picture of her brother up in the kitchen as well. I'm actually named after him as well. That's where Timothy comes from. But he was involved back in the day as well when they were young, and I was always proud of it.
Yeah.
Do you know, it gave me a bit of pride.
Everybody in this
It gave me a bit of, not because of anything other than the history, and that I knew that I had a family member that fought for the freedom of the Irish people at one point or time, you know, and that gave me a lot of pride, you know, because like, I've often watched films there, and this is irrespective of what we're talking about, but when I watched a film called Black 47 last year, I watched it with my kids. My kids didn't know too much about the history of Ireland. And my small lad was sitting down and he says to me, he says, "Is this real?" I says, "Yeah, this is real. This is what actually happened in Ireland back in the famine." And he couldn't understand it, you know, and I was sitting there as well. And it's not that I get emotional, but I'm listening to it. It was the Irish people really had a tough time in this country.
And the history wasn't often on the curriculum, if you think about it. If you think back when we were all in school, you know.
But I think it's different now. Like, you can see my daughter now, she's nearly 15, Kate. Like, she's you know, she knows her stuff. Obviously, she's politicised as well with me, you know, and she's doing a project now at the moment. She's doing it with Thomas Kent, and I was saying, you know, he's your sixth cousin, so through my grandmother's side, I'm related to the Kents. You know, and
you're cousins.
Cousins everywhere.
Thousands of cousins.
Do you know, and
Big families back then, Mick.
to Bill Dunley in Blackpool. Do you know Bill Dunley is former chairperson of the Blackpool Community Association. He's through his family, so you know, it's amazing. Like, you know, everybody has some sort of story when it comes to republicanism in this country. Like,
what kind of as city councillors at the moment in North City, North West, what kind of issues are people presenting to you with? Obviously, housing is probably the biggest one.
Housing and housing maintenance is huge.
And how much agency have you got as a city councillor? Like, how much power or influence do you have to actually support these people, or do you actually feel powerless in it? Or how do you manage that?
Well, I suppose we the council itself borrowed €11 million there in the last council, and it's been spent on this council now, and there is a lot of work being done through that €11 million loan that council borrowed. You know, new roofs, there's windows, there's doors, but you know, it's only touching at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to maintenance. Like, you know, you have the north side, Knocknaheeny houses. It's been regenerated, but most of it has been regenerated. You know, they were 20% smaller than an average house. They were block and flat, you know, and they're built on kind of stilts as well, so you that vacuum under it, you know, so you have a lot of that going on, like, you know, and you know, the older houses then down Grand Raher and Farnray, like, you know.
Will there be any regeneration down that way? Churchfield Green, or Timmy is
They've started.
Churchfield Terrace.
There is some work on that.
I noticed that what they've done is, I remember 2 years just before COVID, they were supposed to start that above, insulate all the houses, put in the air to water heat pumps and stuff, and put in new rads and just upgrade the houses so they'd hit a certain spec for the European Union to pass these carbon laws. Yeah. So that was pulled, the plug was pulled in that then, James, because of COVID. But recently I seen them, what they do is the people that own their own houses, they do up their houses first, I think, and they just insulate them. If I'm wrong, correct me, Mick. But they done my next door neighbour's house. He owned his own house in the house across the road. And I think they were doing them first. Yeah, but I'm not sure now.
Yeah, if you're a homeowner, there's schemes you can avail of. Yeah. The council is doing some. We've been kind of on it the last couple of years in terms of energy efficiency, like which needs to happen. So there will be more there. But I think what you're saying there.
But what about people that don't have no house? That's the
thing. Look, housing. There's I suppose issues we deal with, and we work a lot collectively on issues as well in terms of housing. I mean. Like we are in a housing crisis. Like it was the debate in the last couple of days now in the Dáil, the Sinn Féin Oireachtas team had a motion in that it should be called a housing, you know, declare the housing emergency, which is should. That's on a kind of the big level in terms of politics. We deal with people every day on the housing lists, and you know it can be very difficult. And at times, you know, you can make representations, and some people you work with do get houses. But I think we're just part of that. You know, sometimes it just all falls right. And you can make interventions and you can get some results for people. But I think housing in general, without being overly political on it, but I suppose we are being political in a way. I think we need a change of government. Like all the indicators at the moment show, you know, it's not really working. Like, you know, rents are going way up, house completions are down. The government isn't meeting its targets in terms of social and affordable housing. You know, I think we need a real radical change on it, you know.
Hello everybody, just to remind you all, we are in the Opera House on 8 p.m. Saturday the 25th of March with Jimmy Barry Murphy and Shane Casey.
Yeah, two very, very important figures in Cork City.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Barry Murphy, one of the most inspirational sports stars we had in this city, and Shane Casey, one
Billy
of
Murphy
the characters
himself.
Of the city.
The real offender will meet the young offender, as it were. But if you're interested in getting tickets, you can just go into the description of this video, and there's not that many left either, and we sold out last year, so don't be disappointed when we see you there. Saturday, 25th of March.
Thank you.
Somebody comes to you and they're desperate. There's fucking 4 generations of the same family living in a 3-bed in Kilmore Road, and they're roaring crying to come to you desperate. That's probably a common scenario. How do you actually represent them then? Like, do you bring it? Do you speak in front of a council meeting? Do you speak like kind of over a cup of coffee before the meeting? Like, how does it work?
No, people think you do that meeting. If you don't, I suppose what we do, like we have clinics. People will come in and see us, usually in the office, or we might meet them elsewhere. So we get all their details down. You know, their family size, how many years on the housing list, various all the details that we can get, and then we'll make representations to housing in City Hall, and basically just try and keep doing that process over and over again. And
and I think the average housing, the wait, and they start looking at files for 7 years now. I think
7 years.
It says the average,
that you have to be on it at least 7 years before they look at your file. You know, but again, there is cases out there that you have overcrowding.
Yeah.
You know, you have a family, as you just said, living up in Kilmore Road, and you know, you have mother, father, brother, sister, then you have
the nan and everything is there.
Exactly. You know, which is a health and safety issue then, because council have to look at that as well and say, okay, we have to take someone out of this property because if something happened there, we would be responsible for it. So, you know, and then you have these days you have landlords that are selling up. There's a lot of landlords at the moment just saying, I'm quitting and getting out of it. Now you have accidental landlords that got caught during the boom, that they bought a property and they just got caught with it. And then you have landlords that have a big portfolio that probably are saying, it's an opportunity here now to get rid of my old stock.
Yeah.
You have a council tenant on HAP or someone on HAP in the property, and they're saying, I'm giving you a notice, and they're coming to us then saying, it's going up for sale here. What can I do?
But that's illegal in other countries. Like in other countries, you can't. Like if you're a landlord and let's say if you're a tenant paying your rent, the landlord can't just come in and sell the house Monday. You know, you have a lot more rights in the likes of Spain and Amsterdam, Holland, and places like that. Would you like to see like housing as a right in the constitution?
Yeah, definitely should be. I mean, look, it's something that we have probably spoke about locally in the council or, you know, in the dial. It should be. It's a really basic demand, and there actually is. There's a Raise the Roof big housing rally in Dublin this Saturday,
1 o'clock. Yeah.
this Saturday, which I imagine will be a big turnout. You know, so you're right. Housing, it should be a right, and basically there should be housing for those anybody that needs it.
Yeah.
It should be there. We're far away from that at the moment, unfortunately.
We were actually there already, though. We were in a place in this country years and years ago where we were building enough houses for the people that lived in the country. We had a guy on there recently, his name is Rory Ahern. He's an activist around the housing crisis. Probably
He'd be
more.
in the middle of that protest.
He was actually in Cork recently. I think he
he was
launched
in
a
the
book. Was he?
Yeah, and he was in the studio while he was here.
So I asked him a question. I says, what country would you like to see Ireland like where they're solving their housing crisis? And he said to me, we had it back in the 70s and 80s. We were building enough houses for people. You know, the corporations, Cork County Council and Cork City Council were building the houses direct, you know.
Yeah.
But now everything is leased out to developers and stuff.
And that's what it is. It's they're ruining the market, and they're putting the price on the property, and
How much of a decision, and who wouldn't be able to make a decision where we'd go back to a strategy like that? And
The thing is, local authorities came out of building houses. Like, I'm sure Rory probably could have said that. You know, 70s, 80s, just backed away from it, and too much emphasis put on the private market. No, you need support. People, you know, should be able to buy a home too for their families. Like, but the government came away from that. You know, and that was probably one of the issues. And even in the early 90s, you know, whereas developers had to provide certain percentage of social and affordable housing, they kind of diluted that as well.
yeah,
You know, so the last couple of governments, well, we wouldn't agree with their strategies, but they're playing catch up as well. And I don't think they're going to catch up. You know,
they'll never catch up. And the other thing is apprenticeship programs within councils. You know, I mean, if you had an apprenticeship program of plumbers, electricians, brickies, you know, through every trade that you can, all of a sudden you have people then we have a skilled workforce on our doorstep that can actually do it, that works for the state.
and that would be a great way of solving the shortage in trades that we have in this country at the moment. If the councils did bring on apprentices, because they have plenty of plumbers and stuff within their
And employ them.
Yeah, and employ exactly.
Back to direct labour units, you know, into councils and getting lads in.
building
Like, imagine the amount of money that Cork City Council and Cork County Council are spending at the moment around maintenance and around doing up houses and whatever else. Whereas if we had our own workforce within the councils, the amount of work that could be done.
Do you think Cork City Council is in the process of privatising social housing through the likes of Clwyd and Sinn Féin and all those?
I think that concern has been articulated, but I know some of those housing bodies, like you mentioned, and others would be, you know, like TUA and others respond, would be not for profits.
Yeah, there wouldn't be.
You know, so I think they can play a role, but it has to be led by the local authority. Like, you know, sometimes the council would say about trying to manage what they have and manage their stocks. So I think the approved housing bodies can play a role, but I think the council has to be the lead on it. You know, and it needs to get the resources from the government and Department of Housing to do that. You know,
Like the council have 10,500 houses in stock at the moment within the city. Obviously, the city extended back 2019, like, you know, but housing bodies are very good as well to deal with. You know, I think they're more stricter actually, and you know, they'd come up and they'd have a look, check your house, make sure everything's up to scratch, and the rent man did that years ago.
Yeah.
No, I won't say that he had a.
We all came from social housing by now.
Everybody, I don't care.
I see.
I don't care what you say or who you say to. Everyone came from social housing. You know,
Where would we be without it? Like, honestly, now,
it's
like.
a starter for everybody in life. And people progress and buy their homes, or that they can, and if they can't,
Yeah.
then they're entitled.
And that's good too, because when people can buy their homes like that, because do you know what, it gives them something to work for, and it gives them
Right.
something to say, do you know what, that's my house.
sense
I
of
bought that
ownership.
for myself. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But at the moment, also the councils are they're going into rental properties, and anybody that's in there on the HAP or anything like that, and if it's a rental property, they have engineers going in there checking the houses.
Inspecting them, yeah.
Yeah, to see it up to scratch. I think it's a great idea. Because some of the houses that are openly that are being rented are not up to scratch or safe for
There's a
some
lot
of the
houses
tenants.
failing those
Yeah.
inspections.
And I think that's a good initiative. That
It is,
council
and I
are
think
involved in.
because we raised at the council some years back, like 90% were actually failing HAP or failing a first inspection, and then the council have a kind of a company doing the inspections. So no, I think the last report we got, I think it was still 70 to 80% were rental properties were failing the first inspection. The flip side of them up, I suppose, doing a lot of inspections now is sometimes landlords won't do the work that's required in the houses, so that the tenants are getting notices to quit. So that's the flip side then of all these inspections, So, but it has to be done because it just
Yeah.
shows you the
Well,
quality.
it
or
needs to
lack
be
of.
done, because a lot of these houses are missing smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. They're missing safety clips on windows. There's dampness in the houses. There's not enough of ventilation. There's families living in these houses. So that's the issue that is being dealt with at the moment. And I think, like, if a landlord is making enough money off the property, fair, great. Listen, everybody needs to make a living, and if you can afford to have a few houses, you're doing well. You probably worked hard enough for it. But we also have to protect the people that are living within these houses, and I think that's very important, particularly around these carbon monoxide alarms,
There's supposed to be
smoke
mandatory
alarms. Yeah,
in houses, yeah.
So I think that was probably a great thing that
Had to happen.
yeah, that did definitely need to happen.
Yeah, no, we were probably fucked already, and then Ukraine happened, and like there's a lot of shit going on at the moment up in inner city Dublin, in East Wall, where there was a big influx of not Ukrainian refugees,
there, no.
just regular refugees from all over the world, brought into the community without consultation, and then rumours spread and misinformation, and it led to a big protest, and there's a fierce tensions there at the moment. But if you think about it, right, and it's being infiltrated as well by far-right people, and that's the problem. But if you think about the legitimacy of the residents, let's say, and their concerns, and put it in the context of Cork City, let's say you're up in, I won't name any estate, you're up in Mayfield somewhere, right, in the council estate, and the granny, the mother and the child and everybody else is in the house, can't get assessments for autism, they can't get school placements if they have autism, they can't get access to mental health services, and the tension in the house, the lack of resources, and then Ukrainians, and it's the optics of it, and it drives xenophobia. Do you know what I mean? Is there a fear amongst Cork City Council or Cork City councillors that it could drive the lack of resources that are already there for some areas, and an influx of refugees could exacerbate an already kind of difficult situation,
Yeah, it is a factor. It is something that would probably come back to us. We'd always try and kind of say to people, look, in times of crisis or times of the danger is that people kind of at the bottom end up being pitted against each other.
That's the thing.
That for us, I suppose, in an ideal society, in an ideal republic, you should be able to house everybody that needs it. People that are here on housing lists, no matter where they come from, and then people that are fleeing basically a war in Europe. And and sometimes too, you have to kind of also make sure that you don't fall into the trap of kind of lecturing people as well, or kind of talking down to people who have concerns.
Yeah.
Because I saw the protests there in East Wall, and I saw actually a clip last night of local people in East Wall were saying, look, and they were talking about the people in their community, the barber or the fella in the shop who came from different countries, and the role they play in the community.
Yeah.
So I think it's having conversations with people.
And
on the
just
ground,
because you're having a conversation, there's a lot of stuff on Twitter now slating some of the people involved in that protest, but there's as I said, it's been infiltrated by a right wing agenda. But there was a fella, Neil Prendeville, during the week. He's a solicitor from the area, and he spoke really well. He said, "I've nothing against those people in that building. He says our issue was with Dublin City Council and the department of Roderick O'Gorman and all these people. They just planted these people into this community. There was no consultation with the community. I've nothing against them people, you know. And I think that we have to hold on to that. We can have conversation, and you don't have to be a left-wing Marxist or a right-wing Nazi. You can still have conversation without being labelled like that.
That's it. And I think, looking at that situation in Dublin, because I was following it, there seems to have been a lack of communication there about the plans. And
fair spreads then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And because you have, like, there is going to be 4 or 5 sites in the state where modular homes is going to be provided from people from Ukraine, including one in Cork and Mahon. And some people instinctively say, you know, what about our own people?
Yeah.
But we trying to talk to people and say, look, we should be able to house everybody that needs it, and that, I suppose, put your focus on the government and the government's policies that are failing, that can fail everybody, rather than just taking out on people who are never going to come here in the first place. They're fleeing a war and will go home in a few years' time.
There are Ukrainian people are very proud, like they
don't want to be here at all.
And they'll go back, you know. I mean, it's just unfortunately what's after happening. But like again, when you explain to people the situation, then they kind of sit back and you know, they listen and they're okay with what we're saying, like, you know. But like, we're Irish. We travelled the world. We went into every country in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think we worked and we did stuff. But you know, and we're a proud nation, and look, we just have to embrace what's happening at the moment.
Do you know what I was thinking as well? Do you know Emma Corwin? He's an actor. He was on the Late Late Show. There's a great viral piece he did on the Late Late Show when he speaks about, like, it wasn't the fellas in tracksuits that destroyed the country, it was fellas in suits. But the fellas in tracksuits now are being replaced with refugees as the scapegoat. But it's not the refugees is the problem. You can't get a mental health assessment, or you can't get a house. It's not the fella with the hoodie. It's more senior. But that's an abstract thought for a lot of people, because they're so removed from the policy makers, you know.
It's like what you said about the government. It's not the fault of the Ukrainians coming in or any other refugee that the Irish people aren't getting housing or being first on the list or whatever. It's just the policies around stuff. It's just the government and the country. We're not set up for that kind of scale of what's the right word, James? It's just there's so many people coming into our country. It's like we've nothing set up for it. It's just happened like that, and no, we don't know what to do. And we've Ukrainians everywhere. We've Ukrainian people living in hotels inside function rooms and beds and stuff.
Which isn't right either.
That's awful. Like, that's awful.
You know, if you take the Ukrainians out of it, let's say the Ukrainian thing never happened. We were already in a housing crisis. And it's not that there was a lack of resources there. I think there's a lack of will. There's a lot of resources. We're a very rich country. But do you think that, like, we've met some politicians over the last couple of years? We've had a Taoiseach here. We met Helen McEntee last week. We've Michael McGrath here next week. And good people, decent people. But why can't good, decent people get together and resolve this? Is it a difference in ideologies? Is it what's the...
I think ideology has a part to play with it, you know. And I think there's probably maybe a lack of will. Like you saw there the last number of years during COVID. I mean, there was a ban on evictions, like. And then
they said it couldn't be done.
It couldn't be done. And the state, when it wants to, you know, it wants to mobilise, like in terms of the approach to the pandemic, it can do a lot of things, you know, whether you agree with everything or not.
We filled hotels with homeless people when it suited us for COVID, you know.
Just things can be done, and then as soon as the first opportunity arose, then it was, lift the ban on evictions, you know. Freeze rents. No, we can do it, but we don't want to do it, and that kind of over reliance on the market. You know, like the market can solve everything. And you heard Leo the other day, like saying, you know, about the grass isn't necessarily greener abroad, and then he's actually rode back on it, like, you know. So there is that differences there, I think, between parties.
Policies as well. There are policies, emotions are said out there.
Do you know, because the scale of what we're dealing with in this country at the moment around the housing crisis, cannot all governments just come together and come to some form of agreement around all that and just just sort out the issue where it doesn't matter what government is in power, that everybody is working towards the same goal, which is the most important thing that we need in this country at the moment, is more houses, and just help the people that need them. Can you ever see a future where we have something like that instead of the different governments going up against each other and taking their eye off the emphasis of what they're doing, which is the people, just giving the people what they need to make this country a better place to live? Are we ever, or am I just asking for too much, or am I in dreamland or what?
I think it comes down to what we were just discussing. I think it's the difference in ideologies. It's the difference between some parties basically of the right, really. There's more kind of reliance on the market to solve things, whereas we would look for this, more proactive state.
Get back into this building, the council's building, and get the apprenticeship programs. But you can see what's happening now in another month. The Taoiseach will be handing his belt over to the Taoiseach, and they'll reverse roles, But they came together because they wanted to keep us out, but we're leading in opposition and we're putting things forward in opposition, like the ban on evictions, and we pushed that, and we are coming up with the ideas, we're throwing them at it, they're leaving it go down for a while, and then they're coming out again with this, Tommy Gould says this all the time,
In fairness, Tommy Gould he said it back in the council. I say when he had been elected, I say it was his first speech he made about there being a housing crisis. And the city council management said there wasn't. Other political parties said there wasn't, and there was, and they all took on that language later on, but they denied it at the time.
And even Tommy Gould came up again, one of his first motions was St. Kevin's Hospital above, turn into housing. And for years it left idle, went up and fired twice. Everybody was looking for fire that night, and the LDA now are building, was it 256 properties?
Yeah, something 250.
Just over 250 properties there, so that's since 2009 it's sitting there like that, so can you imagine if they act on proposals that are put forward to them, we probably won't have all in one, but that's a good idea. Let's go with that idea.
Do you know, in this country, we have the most messed up planning laws on the planet, okay? If you're living in China, they can build a hospital in 2 weeks, and it'll help 100,000 people during COVID. Here we can't build, we can't build unless we have about 10 different organisations to go through. Why do we make it so difficult for ourselves, particularly the councils where we need housing in certain areas? Why do we have to go down these hoops? If it's really needed by the people, who are the people of Ireland, why can't we say, right, this is for the people, let's skip this and just start building these houses, and let's not prolong it for another 4 or 5 years? I just do not understand things like that.
Because I think there's a fundamental difference in how we view the world. And on one side you have Sinn Féin, and you have People Before Profit and Social Democrats, and on the other side you have Fine Féin and Fine Gael and others. And on that side, I said Fine Gael side, they view the world as I've earned my money, and I am privileged, and what I have is mine. And if you're getting social welfare, they don't believe in high taxes for your social welfare. So they believe that the free market will solve it. So if you leave it open to the free market, the houses will come, landlords, there'll be investment funds will come in, there'll be incentives given for investors come in, and that housing stock will be created naturally, and people can buy homes and they can rent out and stuff like that, right? That's one side of it. On the other side, then you have the lads saying, yeah, it's okay, we can have that kind of free market, but we also need government interference to help, regulate it as well. So on one side, they don't want any interference from the government, and the other side they do, and that'll never be joined together. Yeah. But Timmy, kind of on what Timmy was saying, can we all come together? That's not going to happen because of that fundamental difference in how we see the world. Yeah. But there's a lot of people on the left side that see the world similarly that can't come together either. And why is it, which is a more realistic proposal, Social Democrats, People Before Profit, Sinn Féin come together in a coalition that would be very, very strong, to have similar views, similar ethos, but that can't seem to be getting done either.
I think I think I think it will be a factor of the next election. Hopefully, like we've said, like we'll talk to any parties. Like our preference, obviously, would be, you know, a few years ago people would laughed at us, but no, it's a possibility that Sinn Féin could be a majority. You know, or our preference would be to lead a government of the left. Some of the parties, the smaller parties of the left, kind of maybe, you know, might be less enthusiastic about being in government, I think, at times. But even recently, people for profit said, look, we could support a Sinn Féin government with conditions. So I think those talks happened the last time, but there wasn't enough seats between us and other parties of the left. And whether that'll happen the next time, I'm not sure.
But I think you're in a stronger position now.
Definitely a stronger position, yeah. Definitely a stronger position. And we'll talk to those parties. And that will be our preference, would be to lead a government of the left that will really make the change that's needed, like, you know.
But you can see in the polls at the moment, like, it'll be Sinn Féin versus Fine Gael in the next election. You know, it will be that'll be the fight, like, you know. I mean, listen to the Taoiseach's speech at his Ardèche there, he spent 5 minutes giving out about us, like, you know, and so he was giving us that platform, and we could
draw the line in the sand, I think, you know.
But you were on about housing, like, there's a shortage of particular type 1-bedrooms.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You know, they're like hen's teeth. You can't get them. You know, and the amount of people, I'd say nearly 50% of the people on the housing list are only eligible for 1-beds. You know, and you know, you can't be just building mixed tenure and everything, but maybe, you know, start pumping up the 1-beds a lot. You know, it's just crazy the amount of people that I have in my books.
Do you know where you will get your 1-beds, though, Ken? Do you know where you'll get your 1-beds? Do you know all these idle buildings that we have around the city? They could be turned into 1-bed apartments very, very easily.
Above the shop, you know.
Yeah.
It'd be great to see something done with Cork Prison as well. Grand old spot, like.
We were just talking about that.
Spoke about it earlier on, actually, you know. We were up outside Cork Prison there a couple of months ago, and, you know, even the fact that there is a bit of history there within the Thomas Kent thing, and the walls of the prison are probably protected as a protected structure, but, you know, there's areas in there that you could put in bungalows for people, step down for people coming out of prison. You know, take down the big walls, pour concrete walls, take them down and put in and support those, you know, give them a home for a certain length of time.
Set up a social enterprise in there that they can create and stuff and making stuff and employment opportunities.
The amount of people that can't afford renting space now for facilities to start up startups, you know, in old cells, you know, take out the steel doors or whatnot.
Training, maybe training for
homeless shelter.
Lads that
homeless, it work perfectly for homeless. People that, you know, 1-bedroom fucking just bedrooms, and that.
The old accommodation, I'd say, above there isn't great, but you'd have the old schools and the old prison officer, mess hall, like, you know, they're in good condition, like they're a modern building. Things can be done there as well, like, you know. So it's, the Irish Prison Service needs to cop onto themselves instead of leaving that mop all up there, and eventually it'll crumble down. And you know, we don't want that happening either, where we have an opportunity to help people out that are coming out of prison as well, like, you know.
So if and when Sinn Féin get into power and lead a coalition on the left, we need a department for podcasts, don't we, Timmy? We need mainstream funding. No, on a serious note though, the amount of people that come to us looking for support, we signpost them, that thank us for linking them in with this person, that person. We go up to prisons, we give talks, schools, treatment centres, but all this is at a cost of ourselves, you know. So if Sinn Féin get into government, I hope that, you know, they'll think outside the box a little bit, you know what I mean? And see the value of podcasts, and not just our podcasts, but like there are podcasts is a relatively new medium that it's good to see some politicians are utilised now, because a lot of people don't watch the 6-1 news.
I look, in fairness to you lads, why you have the opportunity, just to praise you as well for what you're doing, like, you know, it is excellent. I watched a couple, Tommy was on during the night, I was looking at Gillian's podcast.
It's one of the best.
Yeah.
That's the best one you did.
I
Actually.
heard you watched me Hal Martin one 4 or 5 times.
About the research done in UCC.
But just in
podcasts
relation,
and
like,
mental
you know, the voluntary sector, the amount of hours on a weekly basis that is done in this country, and what you do, like, you know, it's just amazing. You couldn't put a value on it.
But you're right. But also, in terms of if we are, you're mentioning if we are in government or leading in government, and obviously we've work to do on that still. But like, I could see us being in government, talking to, like, you know, yourselves.
Yeah.
You know, going down into communities and saying, looking for advice as well.
Yeah.
You know, our interaction from yourselves and Katrina Tooney and others that are out there on the ground in communities, and say, look, you know, because we want to be government of the people, for the people. So there's no point being in there if you're not going to be listening to people there.
Exactly.
Hopefully, who might support you during a campaign to get in
if
there.
you're
you
looking
know?
for
Dan O'Leary in the Life Centre over.
Yeah.
They need the support of the government.
But I can see us getting 2 advisory jobs here, 60 grand a year, cushy.
But what you-
You look on the average wage, though. Mick.
Oh, really?
The average
But
wage.
what you do, and I have to commend you on the dyslexic. To be fair, like, you know, my own daughter's dyslexic, and she's the proudest dyslexic that I know. I have to say it, like, you know, she has the confidence to go up and say, I'm dyslexic, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
You know, where people, it's just why she said to me when we got her diagnosed, can I still be a doctor? I said, you want to be a doctor? Yeah. I said, well, you want to be a
100%.
doctor. You know, your dyslexia it affects 1 in 10 people.
It's just a different way of learning. That's all it is.
And as I said to Kate, is like, you know, some people go from A to B in a bus.
Yeah.
You just go C and D.
You have to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Go right around. But you know what?
You still get there.
It takes sometimes it takes me 4 or 5 times longer the distance, but it's the drive that you gain from it, it's the push, and that's
And that's what I said earlier.
That's
power
an
versus
awful-
force,
that's the
is
first
what you
gift.
have the power to push the force back. Like, you know, and, you know, it's the amount of people that aren't diagnosed that are dyslexic is just sickening as well. Like, you know, and
particularly your own generation.
yeah. You were kind of
Yeah.
you were stupid, going down
Yeah.
there, like, you know.
There's another podcast there in, like, the Department of Education and funding the assessments for children in schools, you know, in their schools. They would, we raised some money there for Knocknaheeny. It shouldn't be. There was teachers contacting us from Blarney Street, from St Aidan's, lads, are you doing any fundraising up here? I've a load of kids there that need it. It shouldn't be like that at all. No. It should be a right that you have an assessment, you know.
It should be a right for right. It's every child's right in this country to get an education. Why is it different for the kids who have the learning differences? Why is it not their right to get the assessments done so they can get the education to match their needs?
And the thing about dyslexia is it's not recognised as a disability, which is
It's a learning difference.
yeah. Like we're on the board of management at Wales, called Peg Sears, the board of us, and like we get 2 assessments. So you're like 2 assessments a year.
Yeah.
And you're picking children then. You know, the school obviously you do that through whatever means possible, like, but it's hard, you know. I'm on the Cush the Court of the Parents' Council as well, and we try to help out the school as well by giving them a few pounds, you know, just to get another couple of assessments done. But you're right what you're saying, like, you know, I mean, everybody has a right to education, and they also, like, again, Kate, she has a bit of resource hours. She's not entitled to it at all. It's the school, to be fair, the AG are brilliant. They bring her out and they help her, like, you know. But there's a crowd there, the Dyslexic Association of Ireland. They're based up in Blarney. You brought them, weren't she?
Yeah, I know Georgie. She runs the place.
Yeah. Like, the school would be full of children, like, you know. And you were saying, Jesus Christ, this is a serious issue in our country. Like,
Unbelievable,
you know, and you know, I just have to top my hat off.
Thanks,
You're
Kim.
brilliant by telling in fairness.
We'll close it off there now, right? I'm going to ask you a question each just to finish it off, right? So if somebody from, because it's great to have you on, for the main reason I was saying earlier on is to have people from the area representing the area at council level. I think it's very important, because if we don't put ourselves forward, somebody from outside the area is going to come in and represent you, and you mightn't have that connection. So I want people to look at this and to see that maybe they can represent their area, and you don't need to be a PhD or like Elon Musk, you know, but also, like, where we're from, we don't have the numbers of people voting like we should. What can you say to the people, I suppose, to get them mobilised, to get them out voting, that might feel a bit you know, disenfranchised from the whole system.
I think it's improved.
Yeah.
The last number of years, I was at the women's participations conference at City Hall the other day, and there was a bit about travellers and migrants. You know, the kind of the question I would have asked would have been, you know, to make and get people like that involved in politics. We have to prove that it means something, and I think the voting is being made easier now. Actually, you can do it online.
Yeah.
So, but in our areas, in our working class communities, the vote has been increasing, and I think that's because people see, hopefully, that there's people in the area worth voting for.
Yeah.
You know, and that will come in the next election. That, I suppose, our message this evening is, if you really want change, you know, from top to bottom in the system, come out and vote for parties that will make that change. And I'm saying that I'm putting to people that's what we will do. You know.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned a while ago as well, we didn't touch on it, just about regeneration, which is an ongoing thing in the northwest of the city. You probably need it in other areas as well. But actually, council officials said something to me a while back, and I agreed with it. Regeneration won't have worked unless it's had an economic benefits as well, because it can't just be about bricks and mortar. And you mentioned as well about even the Pobble index. We still have levels of... Some people don't like the word, but we do have levels of inequality and disadvantage in certain communities, you know.
Well, we scored terribly on all the metrics used.
And actually, we just came from a meeting in City Council there where we were looking at the local economic community plan, which details that, you know. But look, I think with real change, we can make differences in that, and hopefully in 10, 15 years' time, make differences right across the area.
But we can only make a difference if people go out.
And vote.
And
you know,
the last local elections was 44.6% was the turnout. You know, it's about transparency as well in Cork City Council. If we open up committees, if we open up to the public, you know, that you can go online and you can see the meeting, you know, and that there's transparency there, and I see what they're doing. I'm in committee, I can see, this is something that I'm interested in. I'm going to go out and I'm going to vote for him because he's standing up for me or my community. You know, in the last general election, there was 60% turnout. So that'll tell you, you know, the local seems to be... I can't put my foot on why it was so low. And the other thing is, when your child is 18, taking off children's allowance, I believe, this is my personal opinion, that child should automatically go on the register of elector. Instead of, you're off that, and that's it. You know, you have to re-register, you have to register yourself up. So it should be an automatic transfer from one list to the other. And everybody should vote. Voting is very important.
And that's what I just wanted to ask. No, I don't want to sound naive or anything like this, but when I got out of prison, I wasn't registered to vote, and I had never voted before. So for somebody that's in a position like that and they're not registered to vote, what do they have to do?
They can do a couple of things. You can go on the website, register to vote, .ie, and you can actually, it's relatively new, you can do it online now. You can actually go on that, your name and address, it'll ask for PPS and air code, and you can register to vote. Or you can contact us, you know, the Sinn Féin office in Shandon Street, and we can assist people in getting registered to vote, because now is the time to do it with elections coming up.
But again, the prison service, should they sit down with you and go through, because you've done your time and you're on your way out of prison, and the next phase is you being released. Should you be all set up, and should they be on the same wavelength of what you're saying now? Are you registered for voting? Do you want to register for vote? Are you okay for your social welfare? Where are you going next? Do you have a home? Do you need us to put us onto councillors, not us, the other councillors, you know, to see where you are, because you've been locked up for a long time, or whatever, between 6 and 12 months, or 6 and 5 years, or whatever. So I think it's an onus on the prison service to have that sort of
set up,
so they know that, okay, if we have this done with you, he mightn't reoffend. You know, he might go in, he might
a bit of a head start, like.
Exactly, it's all about that extra head start. And look, again, if you want to do something in life, I was on my birthday on the 18th of May, I was appointed a commissioner for oaths as well. Like, you know, and I wanted to be one of those. I'm a peace commissioner as well, and I wanted to be a peace commissioner. So it's just I believe if you want to do something in life, no matter what, you can do it.
100%.
You mentioned an important word there as well about transparency.
Yeah.
And that's what me and Timmy try to do with the podcast, is to have politicians on from, you know, local level to senior level, and to show people that, like, politicians are just people in the end of the day, and you can be a politician or you can be a voter, you can have your influence, but if we can make it transparent, so it's not like some abstract thought out there, it's actually visible, it's tangible, and you can have it affect change. And that's how I think that me and Timmy can help people maybe to go out and use their vote, no matter who they vote for, but once they use it, because we didn't always have it, people fought for it, so it's important. Pleasure talking to you, boys.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
lads.
It's been an honour.
No, it's been...
Hope we didn't go too long now. You might have to edit it.
We know edited and done. No,
It was perfect.
no edited and done. It was lovely talking to you. Thanks for your time, and best of luck with everything in the future.
Appreciate it.
Lads.
Thank you.
Thanks.
God bless.
Goodbye, everyone. God bless. Bye-bye.